I still say goodnight to her. And I tell her I love her. It's just to her picture. Monique did not have to die. I didn't have to throw her out like she was garbage either. My baby was so precious to me.
I remember hearing this story for the first time, thinking, this can't be real. A young mother, a rising star in real estate, dead on New Year's Eve. But it wasn't just the horror of what happened that stuck with me. It was who helped make it happen and why. Monique Bogg got a call that morning. A woman on the line said she was interested in a home Monique had listed. Her voice was calm and warm. Just another client, right? She wanted to see the house that day, December 31st, right before the new year. Monique said yes. She didn't know the voice on the other end didn't belong to a buyer. It belonged to a killer. That night, Monique was found face down in that alley, her wrists bound in duct tape, her fingernails broken like she'd fought for her life, a bullet through her cheek. It was cold. So cold her tears might have frozen before they hit the ground. And just hours earlier, she was helping a stranger find their dream home. But here's what no one saw coming. The woman who made that call? She wasn't some hardened criminal hiding in the shadows. She was Elsa Segura, a probation officer. College educated, clean record. She worked in the very system designed to protect women like Monique. What would drive a woman like Elsa to participate in something so cruel, so orchestrated, so final? This wasn't just a random act of violence. It was a coordinated hit. A multi-layered setup involving burner phones, a rented U-Haul, and a plan built on deception. And Monique? She was caught in the middle of a feud she didn't start. But that's not even the craziest part. Just 2 years later, the justice system that had sentenced Elsa to life took it all back. Her conviction was overturned, her punishment was reduced, a plea deal was accepted. And instead of life behind bars, she'd walk free after serving just 12 years. What happened in that courtroom? What did the judges see that changed everything? Was this a cold-blooded setup or a plan that spun out of control? And why, after all the evidence, all the pain, all the planning, did the law let some of them walk? Would you go to a showing alone if the caller sounded even slightly off? Let us know in the comments. Your instincts might be sharper than you think. Because the story you're about to hear isn't just about one woman's death. It's about the lies that led her there, and the people who are still fighting to get away with it. If this story already has you holding your breath, hit like, share it with someone who thinks this could never happen to them. And if you haven't subscribed yet, ask yourself why. Because if Monique, a smart and cautious mother, could be hunted like this, what does that say about how safe any of us are? You could say Monique Bogg had that kind of energy that pulled people in. She was bright, quick to smile, always moving with purpose. A 28-year-old mother of 2 beautiful girls, she was building something, her real estate brand, her career, her name. You could see it in her Instagram stories, house tours, listings, open house signs, selfies in model kitchens. But underneath the success was something even more magnetic, her loyalty. To her kids, to her man, John Mitchell Momo, to her future. And that's the part that makes what happened next almost unbearable. December 31st, 2019. Most people were buying champagne, planning countdowns. But Monique was working, hustling. That morning, she got a call about a showing. A woman who said she was listening was looking to see a home in Maple Grove, wanted to move fast. Was Monique available that afternoon? She was. She always was. But Lisa Pawlowski wasn't a real buyer. She wasn't even real. The voice was fake, the name was fake, the number? A burner phone. And the woman who placed that call? She didn't want a home, she wanted Monique. At 1:30 p.m., Monique pulled up to the showing location. It was a standard Maple Grove address, suburban, clean, and empty, a foreclosure property often used in showings. She waited. And waited. It's likely, though we may never know for sure, that she began to feel something was off. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the way the air shifted around her. Maybe it was just instinct. But by the time she realized it wasn't a showing, it was already too late. That was the last time anyone saw Monique alive. No calls, no texts. Her phone went dark. Her car was left parked. She had vanished. And the people responsible? They were just getting started.
You'd think that when something this horrific happens, the people behind it would be easy to spot. Career criminals, violent offenders, cold-blooded killers. But nothing about this case was simple, and the people behind Monique Baugh's murder, they were far from what you'd expect. Let's start with Elsa Segura. She was a college graduate. She studied criminal justice, worked as a probation officer for Hennepin County. She wasn't just in the system, she was the system. She knew how investigations worked. She knew how phones were traced. She knew what got people caught. And still, she made the call that lured Monique to her death. Why would someone with everything to lose take that risk? The answer begins with a man named Lyndon Akeem Wiggins. Wiggins wasn't a street thug. He was a label owner, a music producer. He ran an imprint called Momo Records, named, ironically, for the very man he wanted dead, John Mitchell Momo, Monique's boyfriend. It had started as a business relationship, but somewhere along the way it turned toxic. Wiggins believed John had stolen clients, taken his money, and betrayed him. And more than that, he thought John was talking to the feds. A snitch. In the streets, that's a death sentence. But Wiggins didn't want to shoot John. He wanted to humiliate him, to destroy what mattered most. And that's when he hatched the plan. Cedric Lamont Berry, a known enforcer with a violent past, and his close associate, Barry Davis, a man with no hesitation. They were the muscle. Segura, she was the voice, the front, the lie. The four of them formed a puzzle that at first didn't seem to fit. But slowly, investigators pieced it together. Phone records showed Wiggins texting Barry, Segura, and Davis within minutes of each other on December 30th and 31st. That's when it hit detectives. This wasn't just a random act. It was a calculated hit, a revenge plan with layers of deception. But here's where the case twisted again. Wiggins never touched Monique. He never texted her, never called her. And at first glance, there was no physical evidence tying him to the scene. So how do you convict a man who never got his hands dirty? As for Segura, her defense would later argue that she had no idea anyone would be killed, that she thought it was just a scare tactic, just intimidation. But here's the truth no one could ignore. She called Monique. She used a fake name. She sent texts from a burner phone. She put Monique exactly where the killers wanted her. So let me ask you, how does someone with a criminal justice degree help lure a mother of two into a van and never stop to ask what's about to happen? And if she could do that, what else was she willing to hide? She wasn't some hardened criminal. She was a probation officer. The system trusted her, just like Monique did. If that makes you feel something, hit like, share it. Let people see what deception really looks like. And if you're still not subscribed, scroll down and tell us why you're okay watching this and doing nothing.
December 31st, 2019. It's just past 3 p.m. in Maple Grove, Minnesota. Monique Baugh pulls up in her car, alone. She steps out, phone in hand. According to her messages, the buyer is already here, or arriving any minute. She waits. No one comes. At least, not anyone she expected. We don't know exactly how it happened next. There were no cameras inside the house, no witnesses to the moment it turned. But here's what we do know. The same burner phone that lured Monique to this location went dark. Her real estate lockbox was found open. And sometime between 3 and 3:20 p.m., Monique Baugh disappeared. She was thrown into the back of a rented U-Haul van, hands bound, mouth covered, her phone taken. The men behind the abduction, Cedric Berry and Barry Davis, weren't amateurs. They were enforcers. They didn't make a noise. They didn't leave fingerprints. But they did leave something behind. A trail. The U-Haul they used had been rented with cash days before, and while the van itself had no GPS tracking, it didn't matter. Barry and Davis carried their own phones, and law enforcement would later ping every stop. The most crucial stop came a few hours later, when they used Monique's house key. A quiet home. 2 young girls are playing in the living room. Their father, John Mitchell Mumho, sits in the back room completely unaware that 2 men have just slipped through his front door. What happens next is chaos. Gunshots, a struggle. The girls scream as their father is shot multiple times, bleeding, crawling. He somehow survives. But Monique, she's still in the van, still alive, still bound. Somewhere between 5:30 and 6:30 p.m., the U-Haul stops in a Minneapolis alleyway, a quiet, narrow strip behind abandoned garages. It's cold, almost 0 degrees. No security cameras, no traffic. This is where it ends. They open the doors. She's been tortured, nails torn, defensive wounds on her arms. She's desperate, but not broken. And that's when they do it. A single bullet tears through her cheek and out of her neck. Then another. And another. Her body is dumped in the snow. At 6:38 p.m., Monique Ba is officially pronounced dead. Police respond to 2 scenes just hours apart: a bloody home invasion and a woman's body found in an alleyway. At first, they don't even connect the dots. But one thing immediately stands out: the U-Haul. It's found later that night, abandoned, but not empty. Inside, they found bleach, ammonia, gloves, duct tape, and Monique's hair. And the smell? Overpowering, like someone tried to scrub death out of the air. She was tortured, bound, shot, dumped like garbage. And the men who did it, Barry and Davis, they didn't run. They just moved on to the next step, because this wasn't just about killing Monique. It was about something else entirely. A message. But not for her. She was killed to send a message, but to...
The alley where Monique's body was found was cold, silent, and still. But behind the scenes, the Minneapolis Police Department was racing to put the pieces together. And quickly, the case cracked open, not because of what the killers did right, but because of what they overlooked. Their biggest mistake? They brought their phones. Every ping told a story. Police tracked 2 devices moving in tandem, one belonging to Cedric Barry, the other to Barry Davis. Both phones followed the exact route of the U-Haul. Both were present near Monique's final location. Then came the next break. The phone that called Monique, the one belonging to the supposed Lisa Pawlowski, had been purchased with cash, burned clean, almost impossible to trace. Almost. Because when they dug into the voicemail recordings, filtered through forensic software, and compared them to voice samples, a familiar voice emerged. Not a stranger, not a gangster, a probation officer. It was Elsa Segura. She'd made the call. She'd sent the text asking if the stove was gas or electric. She'd sent the final message, "I'm pulling up now." Investigators access Segura's county-issued computer. They find search logs, case files, a disturbing detail. She had looked up Monique's boyfriend in a criminal database days before the murder. Elsa knew who she was targeting. She knew who Monique was. She knew everything. But this story wasn't finished with one voice and 2 guns. Detectives kept digging. The connections between Segura, Barry, and Davis were obvious, but there was one name that kept popping up in every thread, every phone record, every money transfer, every meeting. Lyndon Wiggins. He never touched Monique, never texted her, never set foot near that alley. But he orchestrated the entire thing like a symphony of destruction. The case was finally airtight. In early 2020, a grand jury convened. The indictments came swiftly. First-degree premeditated murder, kidnapping, attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder. Wiggins sat next to his attorney, eyes forward. Segura's face is unreadable. Barry stares straight ahead. Davis looks down. For Monique's family, the arrests brought no comfort, just a hollow silence. Her sister, holding back tears, said, "It wasn't just a kidnapping. They planned an execution. They took her away from her kids, Her whole life erased. The community was stunned. How did a woman with 2 young daughters become a target in a rap feud? How did a man like Wiggins, who never pulled a trigger, get so close to getting away with it? And how could someone like Elsa Segura, trained to protect the public, play such a crucial role? The arrests brought headlines, but they also brought doubt, fear, rage. Because now that the suspects were behind bars, there was only one question left. Would justice hold, or would the cracks in the system let the killers walk free?
By the spring of 2021, the courtroom was packed. Family, press, prosecutors, everyone was watching. The case had all the ingredients of a true crime storm. A public execution, a fake identity, a U-Haul, and 4 suspects from 4 very different walks of life, all now linked by a single moment of violence. The first to face a jury, Cedric Berry and Barry Davis. The evidence against them was overwhelming. Cell tower data, surveillance footage, DNA in the U-Haul, and a .40 caliber gun that matched the bullet in Monique's body. Testimony painted them as cold, calculated, and utterly remorseless. The jury didn't need long. Cedric Berry and Barry Davis found guilty on all counts. Sentence: life without the possibility of parole. Their faces didn't move when the verdict was read. Then came the woman who had placed the call, Elsa Segura. Her defense team argued that she had no idea anyone would be killed, that she thought it was just intimidation, that she had been manipulated. But the prosecution didn't flinch. They played the call in court. They showed burner phone logs, they introduced search history, audio analysis, Segura's own voice on the line pretending to be Lisa Pavlovsky. And finally, on July 13, 2022, Elsa Segura was convicted of aiding and abetting premeditated first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of release. Her mask cracked just once, when the judge said life. But justice, at least in this case, wasn't permanent. Because just 2 years later, everything unraveled. It started quietly, a legal motion filed with the Minnesota Supreme Court. Then another. And then the news broke. The convictions of Elsa Segura and Lyndon Wiggins were overturned. Not because they were innocent, not because the evidence had changed, but because of the jury instructions. The court ruled that the original jury wasn't properly instructed on accomplice liability, that they may have been misled to thinking intent to aid a crime was the same as intent to aid a murder. That distinction changed everything. And just like that, after 2 years behind bars, Segura's life sentence was erased. Wiggins was too. The justice Monique's family had clung to, gone. Just like that. And Elsa Segura wouldn't return to trial because the next twist was a plea deal.
When Elsa Segura first heard her sentence in 2022, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, there was no ambiguity. She was supposed to die in prison. That was the consequence. That was the justice. But less than 2 years later, she stood once again before a judge. This time, the tone was different. No jury, no shackles, no life sentence looming. Just a deal. A plea agreement. She would plead guilty to kidnapping with intent to cause great bodily harm. Not murder, not a conspiracy, not aiding in execution. Just kidnapping. The sentence? 240 months, 20 years. But Segura had already served over 4 years behind bars. And in Minnesota, with good behavior, inmates serve 2/3 of their sentence. That makes her eligible for release in the early 2030s, less than 12 years from now. She'll walk free before Monique's daughters graduate high school. That truth alone sent a shockwave through the courtroom. Across the room, Elsa Segura barely looked up. For Monique's loved ones, this wasn't justice. This was erasure. A slow fade of the pain, the planning, the deliberate malice that started with a single phone call. Because, let's not forget, she wasn't forced. She wasn't coerced. She was a trained officer of the court who used her knowledge to hide her role until the evidence made hiding impossible. Do you believe someone who knowingly lured a woman to her murder deserves a second chance? Is 12 years enough for a life destroyed? Comment below. And while Segura's fate is now locked in, the case is far from over. Lyndon Wiggins, the alleged mastermind, is awaiting retrial. After his conviction was overturned for the same reasons, Prosecutors are preparing to try the entire case again, but time works differently when the pain is permanent. There's also Shantae Sherace Davis, the sister of Cedric Berry, and the woman accused of helping cover up the crime. Prosecutors say she booked hotels, hid evidence, played backup. Her case is still ongoing, but for Monique's family, it doesn't matter who else is charged or what deal is struck, because the one person they want back isn't coming home.
Two little girls wake up every morning without their mother. They see her in pictures. They hear her name in whispers. They wear her memory like a shadow, soft, silent, always there. Monique Ball wasn't just a victim. She was a mother, a partner, a daughter, a friend. She was building a future with her hands, showing homes by day, tucking in babies by night. And that future was stolen. In the years since Monique's death, her community has tried to make sense of what happened. They've held candlelight vigils, started scholarships in her name, told her story again and again, hoping it might prevent the next one. But nothing fills the silence she left behind. We may never know if Elsa Segura truly believed Monique would be killed that day, but we know she called her, we know she lied to her, and we know she placed Monique in front of the people who would end her life. That call wasn't just a setup, it was a sentence. Monique Ball was 28 years old. She was a mother, a partner, a dreamer. The people who planned her murder are still fighting for their freedom. Justice is still unfinished. This wasn't just a crime, it was a message. And now the woman who sent it is getting another chance. Hit like to say Monique mattered. Share it to make sure her name is never forgotten. And if you haven't subscribed by now, tell us in the comments what's stopping you. Because her daughters won't get a second chance. But you just did. Should accomplices in murder face the same time as the killers? Would you forgive someone who helped take your child? Tell us in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next video.
Monique's oldest daughter, Legend, said to me a couple weeks ago, she said that she wants to die. And I said, no, baby, why would you say that? And she said, because I want to see my mommy. And she said, you can bring me flowers. And I knew she was referring to the times that we bring Monique flowers to her grave.